Welcome to the Economist in Your Ear podcast. Have you ever considered what happens when the financial bedrock of a vast nation's local governance starts to show deep structural cracks, pushing officials to literally desperate measures? It's a profound and, somewhat alarming question we're exploring today. We're digging into the intensifying fiscal pressures faced by China's provincial, county, and city governments. And these are the levels of government where the overwhelming majority of public spending actually occurs: roads, schools, healthcare, you name it. But often, the revenue, it doesn't quite keep pace.
No, it doesn't. And when you look at the recent annual audit, some of the numbers that have emerged are, frankly, quite ugly. They really lay bare the scale of this desperation. We're talking about over 40 billion yuan. That's roughly, $6 billion of state pension funds misappropriated just last year.
Pension funds, wow.
Yes. And this wasn't just a one-off. It happened across 13 of the 25 provinces they audited.
13, so quite widespread.
Exactly. And beyond that, shocking figure, another 4 billion yuan was diverted from programs specifically meant for refurbishing schools.
School refurbishments.
And billions more were taken from crucial farming subsidies.
So essential funds are just being rerouted.
Pretty much. It's no wonder that on social media you see this groundswell of concern from citizens about how local finances are being managed. People are calling for, strengthened supervision, more transparency.
Understandably.
But what's really striking here, and what our sources emphasize, is that this isn't primarily driven by greed. It seems to be more about desperation. A desperate attempt by local governments to simply keep the lights on, keep essential services running.
Desperation. That's a powerful word. And perhaps surprising. It really tells us so much about the systemic flaws here, doesn't it?
It does.
At its heart, what we're seeing is this fundamental imbalance. Local governments, they bear the brunt of public spending, infrastructure, social welfare, everything. Yet, a disproportionate share of China's tax revenue flows straight to the central government.
That's the core structural problem.
Yeah, it creates this severe structural deficit locally. Makes it incredibly challenging for provinces, cities to meet their responsibilities.
Exactly. And this already tricky situation has been, dramatically compounded by a lost lifeline. For decades, local officials had this relatively easy way to generate funds: selling land use rights to developers.
Right, the land sales, that was huge.
It was huge, almost indispensable as a revenue source. But since 2021, the property market has been in a serious, prolonged slump.
Which everyone's been talking about.
And that has effectively slashed that crucial revenue stream. It's created a gaping, immediate hole in their budgets, forcing them to scramble, basically, to find money elsewhere.
And beyond that immediate revenue squeeze, there's this even bigger, maybe scarier problem: the hidden debts.
Ah, yes, the LGFVs.
Exactly. These aren't on the official balance sheets, typically tucked away in these quasi-commercial firms, the local government financing vehicles, LGFVs. Technically separate, but everyone knows they're implicitly backed by the government.
And the numbers there are just staggering.
They really are. The IMF, the International Monetary Fund, estimates these LGFVs are sitting on, wait for it, 66 trillion yuan of debt.
66 trillion.
Yeah. To put that in perspective, that's about half of China's entire annual GDP.
Half the GDP. It's hard to even comprehend that scale.
It really is. And this isn't just an abstract number, it's a systemic financial burden. It poses significant risks, not just locally, but potentially to the whole country's financial stability. You think about contingent liabilities, potential defaults, ripple effects. It's a weight you just can't ignore.
Well, quite. So given this dire situation, the central government has responded. They're pushing a rigorous approach to fiscal management, making it very clear to local authorities: you must strengthen financial discipline.
Tighten the belts.
Essentially, yes. Their view is that better budgeting is the main way to cut waste at all levels. And critically, to avoid those desperate measures we talked about earlier, like dipping into pension funds, that erodes public trust, destabilizes things.
Okay, so better budgeting, how? What's the mechanism?
This is where zero-based budgeting, or ZBB, comes in.
ZBB. Heard of it, but maybe explain.
Right. It's a reform the central authority has been pushing, expanding across the country since 2024. The concept is straightforward on paper, but implementing it is tough. Instead of just tweaking last year's budget the usual way.
Incremental adjustments.
Exactly. Officials must justify every single budget item from scratch, from zero, every year. You can't just assume something gets funded, because it always has. It has to prove its worth again and again.
That sounds intensive.
It is. But in theory, this very granular approach should help clear up a lot of systemic inefficiencies. For instance, it aims to stop companies getting duplicate subsidies from different agencies. You know, a common problem when different departments fund similar things.
Right, so silos not talking to each other.
Precisely. This intense scrutiny should make that duplicated spending harder to hide. It also targets what people call zombie policies programs funded long after they're needed, just out of habit.
Cleaning out the attic.
Kind of. And fundamentally, by requiring justification for every yuan, it should make it much harder for funds to be misappropriated quietly. It forces more transparency, more accountability.
Okay, that's the theory. How's it working in practice? Have these ZBB pilots actually delivered?
Well, the initial reports seem quite positive, actually. Resounding yes, in some cases. Take Zhengzhou, big city in central China. Officials there claimed they recovered 3 billion yuan after implementing ZBB.
3 billion. Not insignificant.
Not at all. And down south, in Guangxi, they reported finding an even more impressive 18 billion yuan of idle funds.
Idle. Just sitting there?
Apparently so. Just sitting there. That's a staggering amount. And in Diqing County, Zhejiang Province, Eastern Coast, they claimed they slashed their budget for government projects by half.
Half how?
Simply by ditching redundant projects and merging others. There was this specific example, apparently, where one department realized its propaganda campaign on agricultural policies was basically identical to another department's effort.
Oh.
So they just combined them, saved a lot of resources. It really highlights how much waste can build up.
No kidding.
And the exuberance in Anhui Province, also in eastern China, really drives home the potential. Their finance officials say they've saved a stunning 21.6 billion yuan since 2022.
21.6 billion.
Primarily by nixing hundreds of projects deemed unnecessary or duplicative. An Anhui finance official, Zhu Zijie, was quite candid about it on state TV.
Oh, what did he say?
He openly admitted that before ZBB, coordination was, well, lacking, starkly lacking. He painted this picture. The transport department might build roads in the west, the water department might dig canals in the east, then the housing department might build cities in the north.
Everyone doing their own thing.
They all say that their tasks have been completed, but when you look at the reality, there is no result. Basically no coherence. And he said they were stunned, his word, to find 8 overlapping innovation schemes, all trying to fund the same type of initiative.
8. That's stunning is the right word. Just pure waste.
It highlights just how much can be generated when spending isn't meticulously reviewed.
So it's clear the central government sees huge potential here. Prime Minister Li Qiang pledged support for taking ZBB nationwide back in March, right?
Yes, that was in his annual report. A significant commitment from the top.
But there's always a but, isn't there?
There usually is. Despite these promising results, the road ahead isn't easy. ZBB is far from a silver bullet. Cutting government spending across the board, especially locally, is incredibly painful, politically difficult.
I can imagine.
Yang Xiong from the Chinese Academy of Fiscal Sciences, that's a think tank under the finance ministry, put it starkly. He said ZED will require turning the knife inward and biting the hard bones.
Turning the knife inward. Graphic.
It signals the level of difficulty. This isn't just about finding easy savings. It's about fundamentally rethinking how money is spent. And that inevitably steps on toes, challenges established interests. Officials used to certain funding streams won't like losing that autonomy.
Now we're already seeing that difficulty reflected in the progress, right? It's uneven.
Very uneven. Most provinces have publicly promised reviews, sure, but only a handful have actually set down proper detailed plans that go right down to the county level.
So commitment versus actual implementation.
Exactly. And interestingly, it's the healthier provinces, like Zhejiang better books, less immediate pressure, they're leading the way.
Makes sense. They have more breathing room.
Whereas those facing relatively high fiscal pressures, like Guizhou and some other southwestern provinces, really deep in debt, they've shown comparatively slower progress. It's incredibly tough to make deep cuts when you're already struggling to pay basic bills.
And the political will might just not be there locally, or it's overwhelmed by the sheer size of the whole.
That seems likely. What's also critical here is the central government's cautious stance on direct, extensive financial support.
Right. They haven't just opened the taps.
No. I mean, yes, back in November last year, the finance ministry allowed local governments to issue those extra bonds worth trillions of yuan.
To replace the riskier hidden debts.
Correct. That was significant. It provided some immediate relief, swapping high-interest, short-term debt for lower-interest, longer-term bonds. But beyond that, they've been quite reluctant to offer more broad, direct bailouts or inject huge amounts of cash.
Why the hesitation, do you think? when the need seems so clear?
Well, the rationale seems to be this deep-seated fear of encouraging more irresponsible borrowing down the line. Moral hazard.
Ah, the moral hazard argument. If we bail them out, they'll just do it again.
That seems to be Beijing's thinking. It's a very fine line between providing a necessary safety net and creating incentives for continued overspending. They seem determined to force internal discipline rather than simply reward past mistakes.
It's certainly a delicate, high-stakes balancing act, and it points to a long-term outlook that's still full of challenges. You mentioned reforms are underway to eventually shift more tax revenue locally.
Yes, a more fundamental restructuring.
But that's complex, expected to take years, maybe even a decade.
That's the timeline people are talking about. It's not a quick fix.
So until that fundamental shift happens, until the revenue sharing really changes, it means local officials just have to budget smarter, more efficiently. They essentially have to cut their way out of this crisis to balance the books.
That appears to be the reality for now. And this whole intricate look at China's fiscal tightrope act, it raises a really vital question, I think, not just for China, but for any large, complex economy.
Yeah.
How do you effectively balance that need for central control, for fiscal discipline, with the urgent, on-the-ground realities and, frankly, desperate needs of local governance? How do you implement sweeping, often painful reforms without stifling necessary local innovation or pushing entire regions to the brink, possibly causing social instability?
Yeah, how do you avoid breaking things while trying to fix them?
Exactly. It's a challenge many nations grapple with, though perhaps few on this sheer scale.
Indeed. It's certainly something to consider, not just for China, but for the fundamental principles of governance and economic stability everywhere. As you, our listener, reflect on this, what really stands out to you about this intricate dance between central mandates and local realities? And what implications might it have for how we think about fiscal policy in large, complex systems around the world?